James Ebert. We're here with Rebecca Donahoe, author and Low Country historian. Ms. Donahoe, welcome to A Story Journey Through South Carolina's Mysterious Past.
Thank you so much.
Have you ever heard of Looney's Bridge?
Yes, I have. And that's just a story that interests me so much. I heard my grandparents talk about it, and my father talked about it, and I love stories like that, so I would sit around and question them and try to find out all I could about it. And the Looney Bridge, which was the bridge that was close to our home place, was very interesting. The story went that a woman I heard named Looney, which was a nickname, had an ox and was traveling into what was then Craven County. It wasn't Johnsonville at that time. And the oxen got scared, ran away, threw off the bridge that had no rails on it, and killed her. And even today, they say, and I haven't tried it because I'm not that curious to go and hear somebody mourning in the woods, that if you go and you cut your car off, and if you get out and go to the bridge and listen, you can still hear her.
Have you personally known of anyone who has heard the moaning on the bridge?
Well, I had my father and Jimmy Carmichael was walking that way one night, and they related to me that they got close to the bridge and they saw this figure, and the figure would bend down and then stand back up, and bend down and stand back up. And they said they were so frightened, but they had made up their mind they was going over that bridge that night. So they began to walk, and they would try not to look at the figure. And he said the closer they got, the more bending took place. And when they got there, it was a bush called a dog fennel, and it had frost on it. And as it got heavy with frost or the wind blew, it would bend down, and then it would straighten back up again. So they said they didn't stick around long enough to hear the moaning, and I'm certainly not going to.
How did you get interested in the history of the Low Country of South Carolina?
Well, I was born here in the Hemingway-Johnsonville area, and there is so much history in this area. Some that we're able to document from old records, church records, and county records, and different people that can remember things that happened. And I just was always interested in it. I can remember one day I was about 14 or 15 and was going with a neighbor of mine to see her dad, who was W.A. Larimore. And when I come riding up, he said, "Oh, there she is, the girl that asked all the questions." So I've always asked a lot of questions because I just wanted to know. I was curious. And then I began, my husband and I moved different places, and I'd always take everything I found and put in boxes. So when I retired, I was a councilor of the state of South Carolina in 1990. I pulled out all those boxes, about 15 of them, and began to look at what I had, and it was such wonderful history. And my children were not interested in it at that point. Now, I know they will when they get older, but I started writing in a form that I could throw away some of that material so that I could document it. And then I began to trace where I found it and how I found it and put it together so that others who come along behind me would know and how to find their history.
So, how many books have you written?
About 8 that are on the market, and 4 especially are good sellers.
Okay. Why do you think your books are such good sellers?
Well, I think I write because I did it as a layman. I wrote what would interest people, And then not only did I write the history, that I documented where I found it and would put the legal document in there also so that I could prove it, because the people that buy my books are usually libraries, history rooms, archives, and so I've sold a lot overseas, and so I get a lot of calls and a lot of information for people who researched a particular family that I researched, and they would be in another country. Well, I could get their history also. So I just began to do it because I love doing it, love knowing where we came from.
What is the next project you'll be working on?
Right now I've got about 3 books in my mind that I've started putting together. One is Black History. I found an insurance form that was issued to a plantation owner covering the value of his slaves. I thought that was interesting, and I didn't know anybody else that had that. And I found a book with the name of the slaves and the plantation owner and how much he paid for them. And when they came off the boat in Georgetown, they took his last name. So that helped me trace them. So I'm working on that. And I'm working on 3 brothers that lived in Ireland. And they were Valentine, Richard, and Price Hughes. And they were sent by the Queen to come to the new country and to go in around Charleston and go into the Mississippi Providence and establish a colony for poor Welsh people. And I was at the Caroliniana one day and had looked at all that I wanted to look at there, and I thought, well, I'm going to see what's in the basement, because they'd never let us in the basement. But the guy was not on the door that day, so I went in the basement and looked, and in a controlled cabinet was the letters written by Price Hughes to the Queen and her back to him, explaining what she wanted. And then he would order things like axes, hoes, oxen, and cattle. And all 3 of the brothers went. They got it established, and then they started coming back to go back to their homeland. And Price Hughes, which was a descendant of mine, had a compass, and the Indians killed him for the compass. Valentine died with a disease that he had contacted, and Richard Hughes died a few years later. So that, I've ordered the letters, a copy of the letters, so I'll be putting those out in the history room at the library in Hemingway in about 4 or 5 weeks. So those are a couple of things I'm working on.
It's very interesting. Where can someone go, or if they're interested, how can they find their family history research?
Well, the library in Hemingway on Main Street has given a room to genealogy. And we've been working on it now about a couple of months, trying to set up a system. And because I am not a librarian, all I can do is just put it in there, and then they will have it cataloged. And so we've got vertical files. That was Three Rivers vertical files. We've got John Gregg's vertical files, which was a wonderful gift from his wife Mary. And then they have my vertical files. So there'll be, and lots of books. So with early history, so they can spend the day if need be. So that's one place to look. All the archives have a lot of vertical files. Anyone that come into this part of the country from North Carolina, if they will go to the library in Raleigh, they have a wonderful genealogy department that will tell the name of the family and how they got to North Carolina. So, and most people, especially people that were in the pine tar business, when they came down, what they would do is that they would follow the river, as most families did.